What are you up to, Brian?
Morse message, Mike.
Why's that?
Well, I think we should get the message out, and it's obvious we're being attacked. We're not allowed to be TV-like, and therefore we're going to be wireless. I think that's what we need to do.
Yes. Now we've discovered quite a bit more about AppVod. Well, in fact, it's not that we've discovered in the last 24 hours, but actually we believe that this is part of a much bigger censorship agenda, and so I think we're going to talk a bit about that today. But the last 24 hours has been particularly interesting, hasn't it?
It's been very busy. A lot of people have produced some really good responses. We've seen videos produced. We know a lot of people called AppVod. Well, what did AppVod do? They switched off their call centre, or they put the recorded message on. So a lot of good stuff. We've had some fantastic videos produced, which shows what people can do when they're motivated. We've also had one or two people with a few gripes. Apparently we're not doing enough, which is a bit tricky.
I think it's not that we're not doing enough, it's that we're doing the wrong thing. So the way we've gone about this has been wrong, and really we should have fought this privately and using various forms of law, and well, of course, if we did that, nobody would know about it.
Yeah. So we're going to stick by what we do best, which is we're going to make sure we publicise what's happening. The exposure is the key weapon, and we'll say to people who are pointing the law at us, we absolutely know what you're saying, and we agree with all the good work that's being done around common law in particular at the moment, but we don't think it's our job at the moment to divert from what we do best in order to get tied up in corrupt, fraudulent courts.
Indeed, and we'd just like to point out again, this is not an interview.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And actually, we didn't announce the start of the program. What is this program?
Well, it's UK column wireless, I think it is.
Wireless today.
Wireless, yeah.
Okay. And of course, we're not in the car. We are in the kitchen.
Well, I thought if I was transmitting, I should change location. It's very important.
Well, aside from that, if we were in the same place twice, we might be considered to be studio based, and therefore, yes.
So that. This is a kitchen. They do programs, of course, from kitchens. Does that make it a studio?
I think
kitchen sense of the word.
Only if you're cooking.
Okay. Well, we're not.
No, we don't have a cooker anyway.
No.
Right. So of course, we have taken a stand on the issue of AppVod, but AppVod is only part of a larger pie of media regulation and particularly increasingly media censorship. This is an issue we have been discussing, well, I believe since 2012. This was February 2012 issue of the UK column, and as we were not allowed to put graphics up, we will show you a photocopy of the paper.
Yeah. And
we were actually the first news organisation to expose the links between the Leveson inquiry and Common Purpose and the Media Standards Trust, and people are immediately going to be asking, I'm sure, what the connection is between Leveson and AppVod and so on. But I think what we're about to show is that there are direct links between this entire agenda, which is not just limited to the internet, but in fact all media discussion of events.
Yeah, there's a very big picture operating, Mike, isn't there? And we're going to say that we pushed out that there was this original connection. We're very pleased to say the Daily Mail first of all picked up on it and then started eventually to run with an 11-12 page story. The Telegraph got involved, the Sun got involved, and as we're going to show in a minute, the mainstream press are still asking questions about what's going on.
Yes.
So have we started something? I think we did.
We hope so.
But this isn't just about AppVod. This is a tiny part of something much bigger and much more dangerous.
Yes. Now, before we get on to that as a whole, and I'm not asking this in an interview style, but can we just discuss this issue of independence? What is the definition, do you think, or in your mind, what is the definition of independence with regard to what is going, with regard to public service, and when you're taking part in these supposedly these boards that make policy? What is the definition of independence, do you think?
Well, you don't have any connections with the organisations that are part of the debate, or you're not so heavily connected into people within the sphere of debate that your opinion could be compromised.
Okay, but it's a bit of a difficult area, isn't it? Because of course they want to have people that they perceive as being qualified to actually make judgments on.
That's true.
Right. So do you have an opinion on this? How do you find people that actually are genuinely independent in that case?
Well, one of the things that comes into my mind is that if you've got people who are going to make judgment on what free press is, you should have a team of people who are genuinely independent members of the public, people from some of the houses behind us.
So perhaps you agree with me that it's really pretty arrogant to suggest that that there are no intelligent members of the public that can't make rational decisions on things. That in fact you need to have somebody with 30 years experience in the industry that you're talking about in order to make an independent judgment.
Yeah, it's a bit like having a banker in order to make judgment on banking regulation because there's been fraud and corruption, isn't it? Right. We need another banker.
So yesterday I mentioned one independent member of the ATVOD board. I just wanted to raise one more, and that's a guy called Robin Foster, and he was just appointed in May. Yeah. And he has replaced a lady called Julia Hornell. It looks like Horney. And bearing in mind ATVOD's main activity, I thought that was quite ironic, but it was actually just misreading.
Good job it's wireless here, Mike, otherwise this could be a bit television-like.
Robin Foster then, independent board member of ATVOD, appointed in May 2014, founding member of Communications Chambers, which is a group of independent experts in media and telecommunications, including senior level advice on policy. But before that he was a partner for strategy at Ofcom, and before that he was a director of strategy at the BBC, and before that he was controller of corporate strategy at the BBC. Well, strangely his CV seems to have about 10 years missing between that and coming out of Cambridge University, but you've got to ask, how is this person independent? Yeah. And this is the same question that we're going to ask in a second when we start discussing Leveson, of course.
Yeah, well, we know that so far everything that's come out of ATVOD, and you're seeing it across other boards, these people are all selected, they're all appointed.
Right, but there's more, right? Because Robin Foster also serves on the Ofcom Spectrum Advisory Board, OSAB as it's called. Now this is not an Ofcom board, it's an independent board, in inverted commas, which reports to Ofcom on how to divvy up the electromagnetic spectrum. This is an independent board advising Ofcom. So let's have a look on that. Aside from Robin Foster, who we've already established is not independent because he worked for the BBC for quite a long time and in fact worked for Ofcom itself. We've got David Hendon, who is a member of the Smart Meters Strategic Programme Board. So of course there's no agenda there because smart meters, they don't use the electromagnetic spectrum at all, do they? So there's absolutely no conflict of interest. He was also on the Department of Energy and Climate Change. So that was at the, apologize, that was at the Department of Energy and Climate Change. He was also a director of the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills. So this is a government man, right? Dr. Robert Pepper leads Cisco Global Technology Policy. This is the company which is driving the Internet of Things. So there's no conflict of interest there either in how the electromagnetic spectrum is divvied up. Jean-Jacques Sahel, Director of Policy at Skype/Microsoft, so no conflict of interest there. He's an ex-chairman of OECD Working Party on the Information Economy, and he was the UK signatory to the United Nations ITU Convention and Constitution, and that was the international telecommunication. We're looking at global governance here of the electromagnetic spectrum. And then we've got Gavin Young, Head of Strategy and Planning within Cable and Wireless, so no conflict of interest there. And Mike Walker, who is Group Research and Development Director at Vodafone Group of Companies, so no conflict of interest there either. So we've got a range of completely independent people advising Ofcom on how to divide up the electromagnetic spectrum, and Robin Foster is part and parcel of that group, also completely independent. Yeah, brilliant. So you know, I'm struggling to find a definition for independent which fits this picture. Yeah,
and in the middle of this lot, we've got ATVOD. Should we bring in the Media Standards Trust?
Sure,
that'd be a good place to go.
So that's that's an interesting little report, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the Media Standards Trust. Now, do you want to give us a bit of background on what that is?
Well, basically, this is having a look at...
No, the Media Standards Trust itself, I mean.
Oh, right, okay. It's a good job we're not live, isn't it? Because
Yes.
I'd have really messed that up. What we've got is the Media Standards Trust. We just have a little read through the board. It says it's governed by a board comprising respected figures from civil society and the media, and it meets 4 times a year to decide on the overall strategy. And we've got Mary Ellen Barker, a journalist. We've got Sir David Bell.
There's Sir David Bell, if anybody wants to be reminded what Sir David Bell looks like. And he...
Well, he was Chair of Trustees Common Purpose, but also formerly Chairman of the Financial Times, and of course Pearson Group, which was the company well in behind the setting up of the Media Standards Trust in the first place.
And just in case anybody doesn't remember what Julia Middleton looks like, there she is.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
Yes.
So we've got Sir David Bell, we've got Sir Cyril Chandler, Chairman of the King's Fund, and if people don't know what the King's Fund is about, look it up. We've got Geraint Talfon Davies, Chair of the Institute of Welsh Affairs, Will Davies, Research Fellow in Governance, and he's with the Side Business School, University of Oxford. Remember that the good old Side Business School had money from a gentleman, I believe, had been involved in international arms deals. Roger Grief, Films of Record, Baroness Helena Kennedy, lawyer, writer, broadcaster, Principal of Mansfield College, Oxford. David Lyon, Developing World Correspondent, BBC. Charles Manby, Goldman Sachs. Julia Middleton, Common Purpose. The Right Reverend Stephen Platten, Bishop of Wakefield. Sir Anthony Saltz, Executive Vice Chairman, N.M. Rothschild, and also a member of the Scott Trust, which put money into the Media Standards Trust.
And The Guardian, of course.
And The Guardian. Albert Scardino, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. Anthony Smith, broadcaster. Sue Stapley Consulting. She's obviously a very special lady. And Sir Robert Worcester, who just happens to be the founder of Murray Poll. And I think if you look in the front of that, we find, surprise, surprise.
So this is a Media Standards Trust report, and it's entitled "Can Independent Self-Regulation Keep Standards High and Preserve Press Freedom?" Now, of course, as you would imagine, there was no conflict of interest on any of the people on the board of the Leveson inquiry, because David Bell wasn't on it. And David Bell wasn't anything to do with the Media Standards Trust, nor was he anything to do with Common Purpose.
You are being sarcastic here, Mike.
Would I? Anyway,
right.
so this is an interesting little report, because what they're talking about is the independent custodian of the code.
Right.
Was that something to do with what you were doing earlier?
Well, I hope not.
Acting on behalf of the public in the public interest, the independent arbiter, the first port of call, become a membership organisation. A range of available remedies and for breaches of the code, independence of the industry, and so on. But what is fascinating in this little report is that, of course, they are holding ATVOD up as being a standard to which they should apply.
So we've got Common Purpose with Sir David Bell and Julia Middleton, who helped found the Media Standards Trust. Let me just get this in my head. The Media Standards Trust then drives all of the background agenda to get Leveson.
They started the Hacked Off campaign, they pushed that whole Hacked Off campaign, they drove the Leveson inquiry.
Right, and then in the background we got the same Media Standards Trust with Anthony Saltz, the N.M. Rothschild man, who's actually part of the report you've got in your hand. They just happen to be the people that are now pushing ATVOD forward as a...
Yes, and let's not forget that David Bell, this man, David Bell, who set up the Media Standards Trust, resigned from the Media Standards Trust just prior to the Leveson inquiry, and that made him independent.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, let's just remember that. So
Media Standards Trust is saying that ATVOD is a very good organisation and we need it.
Yes.
What can you tell us on that then?
Well, they say that ATVOD enforces a code of conduct under an independent chairman. It has been deemed successful by Ofcom. They say that ATVOD's objectives are primarily to, quote, regulate the conduct of its members in relation to their provision of television on demand. So you notice it doesn't say video on demand services, it doesn't say YouTube services, it says television on demand services. so as to ensure television on demand providers are committed to delivering a broad range of high quality consumer services. It says, quote, develop and keep under constant review a code of practice containing standards and core principles. So they have to develop that and they have to keep it under review. So it's developing, uncertain. So that's reinforced here. And this clearly is a way of doing things that the Media Standards Trust thinks is a good way of doing things, because obviously it will change over time.
Yeah.
And they say that ATVOD's constitution empowers the directors to pass rules or bylaws governing the terms of membership. So once you are a member of ATVOD, at any point subsequent to that, the board of directors can decide just to change the terms and conditions of your membership. And of course, you could choose to leave, but in that case, what happens then?
Well, presumably they come out and point a finger at you and say we're going to regulate you anyway. I would guess.
Yes. So there is no basis in law for this. Is the main point here.
Yeah.
There is no basis in law for any of this, or for any changes in the criteria that are applied, in any changes in who the criteria are applied to, and so on.
Yeah.
But Media Standards Trust believe that ATVOD is the beacon of how this should be done, and of course they're disappointed at the minute that Levison hasn't turned out quite how they hoped it would, but nonetheless they're still campaigning for this.
Okay, if I can just steal one of these early ones here. I just found it interesting, the acknowledgement, this is them praising themselves. The Media Standards Trust would like to thank those who have assisted the drafting of the document. The Press Complaints Commission took great care to explain its work to the Media Standards Trust. Now, we know the Media Standards Trust was absolutely attacking the Press Complaints Commission in a vicious way in order to get Levison in. Sir Robert Worcester and the team at Ipsos Mori helped design the opinion poll research. Well, they would, wouldn't they? Because they're part of Media Standards Trust.
They're independent.
Yeah. And then the chairman, Anthony Saltz, provided tireless scrutiny and encouragement. Well, that's when he wasn't driving the international banking scene through the Rothschilds. But the work would not have been possible without the support of the Trust core funders, notably the Pearson Foundation, which just happens...
Sorry, is that David Bell's Pearson Foundation?
Well, it's the very same group of companies and their foundation, yeah. So the same foundation...
So that's independent?
Yeah. And then Esme Fairbairn Foundation, which we'll come back to, the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust, and the Gatsby Foundation.
That's the Great Gatsby?
Yeah, the Great Gatsby. So, what's the significance of this? Well, we need to come over here to a Daily Mail article.
We're sorry we're not allowed to produce graphics. We've already explained why that is.
Wireless. So we printed out part of the headline. This chilling new assault on free speech. For years, a noble British charity fought the freedom of expression around the world. Now it's being undermined by press-hating zealots of Hacked Off. Hacked Off being created by the Media Standards Trust.
Yes.
So what were they talking about? They were talking about a British charity called Index on Censorship. Suddenly it's had all of its funding pulled, £400,000, and they've got trouble surviving now, reporting on where freedom of speech has been shut off around the world.
But that situation, when was that report?
This article,
yes.
It was the 19th of June.
Right, because of course Index on Censorship now has none other than Hugh Grant as one of its trustees.
Yeah, Hugh Grant, I think, was one of the big supporters of the Hacked Off campaign.
Yes. And
he was one of the key witnesses at Levison.
Indeed.
So he's now come into a charity that was doing a really good job pointing out where freedom of speech was being suppressed, and all of a sudden funding's been withdrawn.
Yes.
So where was the funding coming from? Well, the funding just happened to be coming from the Esme Fairbairn Foundation.
Yes.
And what the Daily Mail article points out here is that Esme Fairbairn has a portfolio of investments worth 827 million.
Yes.
So nearly £1 billion in the hands of a group of people. I don't know who these people are, but they can come in and get involved in the process to influence what's going to happen with the press.
But it's independent money, Brian. You don't need to worry about it because it's independent money.
Do you reckon any of their portfolio will be connected with the Rothschild banking interest?
Couldn't possibly be, because it's all independent money.
Right.
I mean, look, we've got Esme Fairbairn Foundation, we've got Joseph Rowntree Trust. It's amazing that these are all trusts and foundations. We've got Open Society Foundation, we've got the Pearson Foundation, and many others can you think of?
Thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah.
All this money sloshing around, which is going to good causes, is going to charities.
Yeah.
And we've made this point before. 40,000 charities or whatever it is in this country. You would think nobody would be in need.
Yeah.
Because obviously charities are there to help people that are in need. So
well, they were till Tony Blair got them, and then he created the third sector, and the idea was to use charities in order to put policy through.
Right.
And part of that policy, of course, is clamp down freedom of the press.
Right.
So I just read a little bit here. In 2005, Sir David and Common Purpose founder Julia Middleton, an author and leadership expert, established the Media Standards Trust, an independent registered charity that fosters high standards in news on behalf of the public.
Who said this?
They did.
Right.
Which was based at the Common Purpose offices. Sir David Bell was MST's first chairman. That year, the Esme Fairbairn Foundation gave the fledgling organisation 70 grand.
Right.
Among the Media Standards Trust trustees was Albert Scardino, husband of Sir David's boss at Pearson.
So that's not incestuous at all.
Pretty much so, yeah. But she's also one of the people apparently favourite to become chair of the BBC Trust. And then basically they're tied in with the MacArthur Foundation. And,
another one, yeah.
And Esme Fairbairn gave the Media Standards Trust 150 grand in 2009. So, as you say, pretty incestuous, but don't worry because it's independent.
It's independent.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the theme here.
Well, I think we got to say that if people just think what we are witnessing at the moment is APVOD coming to take out the UK column because they don't like us, could it be because we're the very people that expose Common Purpose and Leveson?
Well, that's
this is much bigger.
Yes, that's quite possible. This is much bigger. It is. You look at this rat's nest of independent advisors and the organisations and foundations that they're working with, and you find them in every single censorship agenda that is being pushed forward in this country at the moment. And this is not a conspiracy; it's fact.
Or a criminal conspiracy.
It is criminal in its intent, and completely unconstitutional.
Right. So we'd like to say something to the people out there on the other end of the wireless, and that is that the key to dealing with what's going on is exposure of what the system really is. And if we're going to be a little bit crunchy and we say we're getting a lot of advice at the moment as to what we should do this, we should do that, and a key part of that is what these people are doing is against the law. Well, we know that. We also know the courts are corrupt, and that's why we've got the UK column, because we're trying to tell people. So if people want to challenge this by going through common law, which we'd support, we need you to do it, because we've got enough on our plate at the moment reporting that many people need to wake up, because the moment free media is closed down, what we're going to see is the secret arrests spiralling. Remember, reported in the mainstream media to date, 600 people arrested in secret by the new crime body, mothers being arrested and sectioned and forcibly drugged to stop them exposing paedophile rings, people dying in police stations. This is the reality of life in Britain today, and that's why we need free press and media. So I think we're going to say UK column flat out at the moment, getting the truth out about what's happening. We're giving you the ammunition. Am I allowed to say ammunition, Mike?
It's not. It's not a television-like term, so I don't see any problem with it.
Well, this is a wireless word. We're giving you the ammunition to really take the lid off and expose these people. What we don't need is people coming back to us and saying, well, UK column, what you need to do is this and that. We need your help. You need our help. If we all work together, we can deal with what's starting to happen. But critical, this is a massive octopus strangling free speech on the internet, but it'll come to TV, it'll come to wireless.
Yeah. So tonight at 6 p.m. on the live stream, ukcolumn.org/live, there is an issue, maybe?
Yes.
A version.
Yes.
We're not allowed to say episode of Doomwatch.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting indeed. Please join us for that, 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock tonight.
Good.
Yes.
And I'll add, thank you very much to all the people that have been pushing the wireless episodes around the car, the men in the car. That is starting to move. We're fascinated to see the response from the American audience, because Americans just do not understand that Britain is much closer to a police state than America, even though we don't have the guns, perhaps because we don't have the guns. But I'm using that word in a kitchen sense, Mike, so...
Yeah. Now, I'm sitting here wondering how we end this, because of course we are not in a studio.
No.
And therefore I actually have to get up
and
switch the camera off.
While you're doing that, I'll just say many people will not have believed this was a radio. They think it's something to do with dog biscuits. But I'm just going to show you that if I can hold this up to camera, I assure you that this is the real thing.
Do you have an Ofcom license to operate that?
Oh my goodness. It's below 10 watts.
Okay.
I'll leave you to switch the camera off.
Okay.